Chapter 1365, Destruction. The moment they sense the intrusion of a stranger, the animals wearing cloaks or exquisite long skirts stirred as they looked at Klein with the desire to attack. At that instant, Klein, who was wearing the pride mask, felt as though he was an enemy of the entire city. He wasn't unfamiliar with the situation in the Garden of Eden. He knew that the upright animals dressed as humans were in different aspects of bestial desires. They were more like conceptual and abstract entities instead of being physical. In other words, they didn't have spirit body threads, so they wouldn't suffer any physical harm. Otherwise, Klein could have hoisted these animals up, allowing them to sway with the wind. In the next second, with the bear whose suit was about to rip apart taking the lead, the animals in the Garden of Eden either bared their fangs or let out low growls as they surged towards Klein from all directions. Once bitten or hugged by them, one would be corrupted by the corresponding bestial desire. One could only rely on their willpower or the various beyonder powers of the spectator pathway to resist them. Faced with such a situation, Klein, who was wearing a half-top hat, tapped the staff of the stars. Without panicking in the slightest, he raised his left hand, spread his fingers, and suddenly closed them. The Garden of Eden, formed from Gothic-style architecture, was suddenly covered in a layer of gloom, as if a giant curtain had draped over it. Realm of the mysteries, the embryonic form of a divine kingdom. Klein sealed off the Garden of Eden to prevent the powerhouses inside from escaping. Following that, he walked forward one step at a time, like a gentleman taking an after-meal stroll. The animals who mimicked humans by wearing human clothes rushed to his side when they naturally changed directions and embraced each other. The python, with its flicking tongue, devoured a canine creature filled with the desire to mate. The strange person with a colorful spider as a face bound a huge, red-eyed rat up with a web. A violent werewolf bit the languid cat. The brown bear, walking upright, gave the fox with shiny fur a bear hug. These animals that represented bestial desire fused together as they canceled each other out in pairs. Klein, who had grasped the authority of grafting, slowly walked through them, as though he was inspecting the concepts of humanity and bestial desires. Just like that, he walked to the 80-meter-tall cathedral and stopped. Then, he lifted his head and looked at the skulls embedded in the black pillar for 2 seconds. Klein's expression didn't change at all. He raised his left hand to press down his hat and walked up the stairs into the cathedral. He immediately saw a grand and spacious hall, with a huge cross and a grayish-white dragon statue wrapped around the cross. In front of the cross was a small long table with 5 seats on both sides of the long table. At this moment, at the end of the long table, there was a man in a black wheelchair. His face was abnormally pale, and his pale yellow eyebrows were long. His hair was neatly combed, and there were some wrinkles on his forehead. This was the leader of the psychology alchemists, Pauly. At the same time, he was also the famous hermit Eric Drake, and the king of the Black Throne Barrows Hopkins. Of course, whether he was the main body or one of his various identities, no one knew. Seeing Jayaman Sparrow, who was wearing a silk top hat and a black trench coat, walk over slowly and in an extremely oppressive manner, Pauly clasped the armrest of the wheelchair with both hands. When the other party entered the Garden of Eden, he didn't hesitate to leave this mind city, but he failed to do so. The eyes beneath the pride mask that seemed to move towards his forehead seemed to be mocking him. Phew! Pauly quickly placated, his emotions before his eyes lit up with a pure, illusory light. This light formed a pair of holy wings in front of him. Under the layers of wings, there was a pious person of light genuflecting in prayer. This was an angel. At the same time, an elder with white hair and ordinary looks appeared to the left of Pauly. To his right, a priest with a pale blonde beard covering his face stood up. Ancient angel Hermes, visionary Adam. Klein didn't stop walking forward as he muttered to himself, "I wish for all illusions to disappear." Just as he said that, he raised his left hand and snapped his fingers. The angel of light, Hermes, and visionary Adam instantly dissipated and vanished, leaving behind a single Pauly sitting in the black wheelchair. He had just used the beyonder powers of a dreamweaver to weave a few almost realistic images. Once the enemy believed that they were real, they would become real. Although the damage they caused didn't have any physical manifestations, it would make the target die for unknown reasons. Pauly has made countless targets die from fright in such nightmares. Unfortunately, he had encountered Klein, a king of angels who could maintain his lucidity in dreams and also possessed true vision. He used the wish's power of a miracle invoker to easily crack the illusion. Seeing this, Pauly eyelids twitched. Without any hesitation, he pushed himself up from the black wheelchair. During this process, his body rapidly expanded as he transformed into a huge grayish-white dragon. Dragon transformation. An incomplete mythical creature form. Compared to Sequence 4 Manipulator, the incomplete mythical creature form that Pauly exhibited was even larger. Furthermore, there was a certain change to his head, making it closer to a lizard and not a human. It had golden vertical pupils and scales that were intertwined with mysterious patterns, making it cold and warped. As the incomplete mythical creature form appeared, all kinds of thoughts, consciousness, desires, and wills swept out like a storm, attacking Klein's mind island in half-illusory and half-realistic ways. This was a combination of mind deprivation and mental plague, allowing every creature that was affected to experience corruption and go crazy on the spot. To an angel, such attacks were the most sinister. This was because all of them had certain problems with their mental states. They could lose control at any moment due to the tilting of the scales. Klein, who was wearing the grayish-white pride mask and half-top hat, didn't stop walking forward. He didn't attempt to avoid the plague storm at the mental level. He remained firm and stoic as he walked step by step towards Pauly. In the next second, transparent insects appeared on the back of his hand. His clothes expanded as though countless indescribable monsters were crawling underneath. Suddenly, Klein lost control and turned into a huge whirlpool formed by transparent maggots. The vortex extended out slippery tentacles with strange patterns. In the middle, there was a door of light that was dyed bluish-black. Upon seeing this scene, even in his incomplete mythical creature form, Pauly found it difficult to stop his thoughts from coming to a halt as he stood rooted to the ground. The massive grayish-white dragon seemed to have become a puppet. Its head was filled with mush, and its joints were all rusted. He had stared straight at a great existence that he shouldn't look at. Above the gray fog, Klein, who was sitting at the fool's seat, immediately dispersed the out-of-control historical projection. After entering the Garden of Eden and pulling out the Staff of the Stars, he had switched places with the historical void projection that the worms of spirit inside Sephra Castle had summoned, and directly returned to his ancient palace. He clearly knew that visionary Adam had gone to the forsaken land of the gods and was attempting to fuse with the true creator, making it impossible for him to descend with his true body anytime in the short foreseeable future. At most, he would send out one of his other identities, but it would be useless against a king of kings of angels. However, Klein still felt that he should be cautious, lest he fall into Adam's or Ammon's trap. Following that, he summoned himself from the fog of history. He wore the pride mask and held the Staff of the Stars in his hand as he projected himself back into the cathedral of the Garden of Eden. Seeing that Pauly had lost most of his rationality and was unable to control his body, Klein didn't directly control his spirit-body threads to turn the mind dragon into his marionette. He maintained his pace as he slowly approached the target. In Pauly eyes, Jayaman Sparrow was like death incarnate. He approached him slowly with his own rhythm, but there was no chance of escape. At that moment, the grayish-white dragon statue on the huge cross behind him moved. Almost simultaneously, Klein raised his left hand and pulled downwards. The shadow curtain that enveloped the Garden of Eden instantly contracted, enveloping the huge cross, the grayish-white dragon statue, and Pauly within. In the next second, Klein raised the curtain. The incomplete mythical creature that Pauly had transformed into combined with the gigantic cross, as though it was a knotted giant tree. And the grayish-white dragon statue connected the entirety of the Garden of Eden, turning the city outside the cathedral into an abnormally illusory sea that contained all colors. This wasn't the chaos sea, rather the loaning of its strength. It had been tampered by Klein and reassembled. At that moment, Jayaman Sparrow, who had been walking slowly forward, arrived beside the knotted giant tree. He raised his right hand, and under the vacant yet slightly fearful gaze of Pauly Durlau, he lashed out with the staff of the stars. This cane that was embedded with many gems hit the target heavily, separating it into two. Between the sounds of parts falling to the ground, Pauly Durlau's body, that had been combined with the huge cross, fell to the ground. The leader of the psychology alchemists died before he could even say his last words. While waiting for Pauly Durlau's beyonder characteristic to appear, Klein looked around and chuckled inwardly. As expected, Hermes's true goal was to use the faction backing Miss Justice to destroy the Garden of Eden and use it to escape from Adam. The mind dragon, Arihog's words made him steel his resolve. However, he should have still left a few sealed artifacts for me. There's no need to abscond with everything. Could it be that the rabbit should be wearing a greed mask instead of wrath? The psychology alchemists might appear again in the future, but the one controlling it in the shadows is no longer the Twilight Hermit Order, but Hermes himself.